Broadcasting across the U.S. and around the world. Good morning, radio friends, and welcome to another edition of the Retro Oldies Brunch, the show that takes a nostalgic look back at music history. I'm your host, Vern Sherd, and I'll be taking you to the 1960s as we go back 60 years to visit the year that was 1966. Our showcase will feature music and anecdotes about the songs and artists, and include news and entertainment briefs. We'll also have our three-of-a-kind music trivia segment, a forgotten 1966 hit from our radio vault, and a long-distance dedication from one of our listeners. On this month's showcase, the debut single of an iconic folk rock group whose leader had famous offspring, and a couple of artists who are brothers, but not related. We'll begin our showcase with a one-hit wonder who started out playing saxophone before venturing out as a solo act. His only hit reached the top 10 and was used in various commercials many years later. Here's Robert Parker with Barefootin. Now we're up to the signature song by a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame folk rock group that captures the California sound of the 1960s and was the group's debut single and first top 40 hit. Two of founding member John Phillips' children also made their mark in pop culture. Daughter Mackenzie had a memorable role as a preteen who befriends a hot rodder in American Graffiti, and starred as Julie in the popular sitcom One Day at a Time. Daughter China became a member of the pop vocal group Wilson Phillips. Peaking at number 4 in 1966, here are the Mamas and the Papas and California Dreamin'. Welcome back, I'm Vern Sherd, and now it's time to take a look back at the year that was 1966. The U.S. Department of Transportation is created. Miranda rights come into being after the U.S. Supreme Court overturns a conviction of a confessed criminal named Ernesto Arturo Miranda by ruling he had not been properly informed of his right to counsel and not to testify against himself. Ronald Reagan enters politics and becomes the governor of California. And Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band the Rolling Stones have their third chart topper in the Billboard Pop Charts with a song that was used at the end of the films Full Metal Jacket and The Devil's Advocate. This is Paint It Black. Now we're up to the first of a couple musical acts whose name implies siblings but are not actually related. The trio consisting of John Moss, Noel Scott Engel, and Gary Leeds decided to use the surname Walker as a show business touch. They only had moderate success in the US but were hugely successful in England. They landed a couple of top 20 hits in the US, with this one being their biggest. Here are John, Scott, and Gary, the Walker Brothers, with The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore. Now it's time for a long-distance dedication. This submission deals with a serious topic that has become mainstream in recent years, that being the plight of the working poor. Comes in from John from Pennsylvania. Dear Mr. Vern, I'm writing to you in hopes that you air my submission for your dedication feature on your show. My name is John and I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Nearly 6 years ago, I had to close my business due to the COVID lockdown. The lockdown was devastating to me and countless other small businesses across the country. Within a year, my home was foreclosed and I found myself homeless, living in my work truck. I was able to pick up odd jobs here and there, but it took a year before I was able to get a full-time job as a mechanic. In the meantime, rent and housing costs went through the roof and I had to remain living in my truck. I found that I was judged for living in my truck even though I had a job. It's tough to know what someone is going through unless you've been there yourself. I befriended others in my situation, people who are actually homeless despite having a job. As each year passed since the pandemic, I've noticed that more and more people are becoming uncaring and cold towards others. I've also noticed that people who are struggling are becoming hopeless with their lives. The past year, a couple of friends of mine and I were able to find a home that was for rent. It felt like a weight had been lifted and we were now able to share expenses and live in dignity. On behalf of myself, my friends, and others who are still homeless, I want to dedicate the song Easy to Be Hard as a message to everyone not to judge a book by its cover. As I mentioned, you don't always know that person's story. Thank you for your time, and please pray for those who are struggling and keep them in your thoughts. Sincerely, John. Well, John, I just want to say I'm truly sorry for what you had to go through, but I'm happy that you and your friends persevered and found a place to live. I will say that it says a lot about a society when a person can have a full-time job and still not be able to afford a place to live. No one should have to go through that. John, as promised, here is your long-distance dedication. Welcome back to the Retro Oldies Brunch. I'm Vern Sherwood, and now it's time to take another look back at the year that was 1966. The top grossing movies are The Bible and Hawaii. Bonanza and The Red Skelton Hour are the top TV shows. Legendary animator and producer Walt Disney dies at age 65, and silent movie star and comedian Buster Keaton dies at age 70. And number one this week in 1966 is a song from our other act who performed as brothers but weren't related. Their stage name of these Rock and Roll Hall of Famers came from their performances at a California Marine base when a black Marine shouted, "That was righteous, brothers!" at the end of a performance. Here's Bill Medley and Bobby Hatfield, the Righteous Brothers, with Soul and Inspiration. That was Paul Revere and the Raiders, and that concludes this month's Retro Oldies Brunch, the year that was 1966. If you haven't already done so, be sure to connect with DJ Greyhound Radio on LinkedIn for our monthly schedule, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for showcase clips. Be sure to join us next month as we visit another year from the past with the year that was. Until next time, radio friends, this is Vern Sherwood saying, don't be afraid to aim high with your goals. Even if you come up short, you'll still end up at a better place. You're listening to DJ Greyhound Radio, playing the hits of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.